Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Love seeing all the stuff about the song, the Wildflower song. I love that version. I love almost all of the Wildflower versions. For me, it just screams spring, and I woke up this morning really wanting that song. So to me, it screams spring, but for me, it also reminds me of road trips, which I also feel like is a spring vibe. But we are glad that you're here. If you have not seen me before, hello, my name is Katie Gideon. I will be the on-camera facilitator for this social. You all get to stay and get comfy and cozy and just start your day however you see fit. And join us in the chat where you will see my co-facilitator, Jeno. We are the former Team Texas, but I feel like I've gallivanted since then, but I am currently back in Oklahoma for right now. But we are glad that you're here. We are glad that you've joined us. Normally, this is like a Jen, the two Jens cover these Monday mornings, and I feel like I've been a little bit of a party crasher the past couple times, but I'm excited to be here. Excited to start my Monday off with each and every one of you. I'm already seeing some of our returning socialers. Welcome. It's always great to see your names in the chat. But if you are new, or if this is your first setup social, or if this is your first month with Silk and Sonder, or your first month or social in a while, or if you are just normally the schedules worked a little bit differently, and so you're here because this was the one that was available. We always love to welcome that each of those that are either new in that capacity, but also we know that each of these socials have their own vibe depending on the day. So this one is definitely a great way to segue into the week because it's a little bit, I feel like it's a little bit slower, it's a little bit calmer, but we still dig quite deep. We get very honest and transparent real quick, but we know it's just a lovely way to start the day and start the week. If you want to participate in the chat, just double check that it's set to everyone. The default is hosts and panelists, which, you know, Jen and I always love to chat with you there, but we assume that you probably want to chat with other people. So just double check it does that. It likes to go back and forth because the default is hosts and panelists. And as always, please be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions. But I always add a caveat to this because we love talking about our products, but we also know that you guys have some great tools and great resources that you like to share amongst yourself. Maya does the unofficial book club. She also does a pen pal system. So there are a lot of other things we want to talk about, and please feel free to do so. We just ask that it doesn't detract why we're here, which is that actual setup. And so we will most likely redirect a lot of your customer care inquiries to our team, hello@silkandsonder.com. And I always say because of the time it takes to kind of put some of these things together and think about things, if you have any sort of kind of feedback or thoughts and opinions, we love to read them. We read everything. Now is the time to kind of send those in, especially when it comes to kind of the layout of the journals, those kind of things, because you do have to do pretty far out in this day and age, especially on the manufacturing and printing side. So this would be a really good time to send in some of that feedback. Be the squeaky wheel that gets the oil, as they say. But that's at hello@silkandsonder.com. And then as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So I was hosting some of the monthly setups, and I found out that kind of this month's theme can be a little tricky for people. And I think that's always great. It's always good to find some themes that make you a little uncomfortable, push you outside of that comfort zone, challenge you a little bit. But at the same time, you shouldn't be beating yourself up over kind of what has transpired. You shouldn't leave this feeling really guilty. You shouldn't leave this feeling, bad about yourself. But at the same time, if you've woken up and maybe it's not your day, maybe it's not your month, maybe it's not even the year going off to a great start. Do not kind of spiral. Add those kind of mental and emotional barriers to protect yourself because we like to push and kind of challenge ourselves a bit, but we don't want this to be that detrimental. So just keep that in mind. There are no journal police. No one is looking over your shoulder to see how much you have done, to see where you are in that. So it becomes that you can participate in as much or as little as these socials and you want, and that is perfectly fine. If the chat is too much for you, you can close that. If I am too much for you, you can mute me. If the slides are a little bit too much of a visual inundation, let me know and I can change the slide. But we're just glad that you're here, that you've set aside this next hour to join all of us to kick off your week. So, as we said, this is week 1 of May, the first full week. So, we do have a new theme. And the theme this month is integrity. And I find this word a bit challenging because I still feel like there are some like traits there's traits and ideas and kind of lenses that you can look through things, but I always feel like I put integrity up on one of those really high pedestals of like almost the like morality standpoint. So I always get a little nervous and a little tricky when it comes to some of those just like heavier, almost unachievable type themes in my head. And again, I think it just becomes one of those very tricky things to navigate. And Aaron, exact point, the core value. Anything that is a core value always makes me a little nervous. But what I really appreciated was these ideas that we can now look and kind of how can we turn some of those high pillars into almost day-to-day actionable items without having to kind of feel like you need to kind of change personalities, change approaches, and almost like overly micromanage how you live just to kind of accomplish some of these things. So I came across these two quotes, and I think they work really well together because they almost contradict each other. So the first one I liked was integrity is when you care more for the hard truth than the easy lie. And I feel like that is one of those, I'm one of those people. I want the feedback. I want the criticism. I never assume that something goes perfectly well. I always try to look for that feedback of how can I do something better. So I am definitely one of those. I need the hard truths. I need the yes or the no answer. I don't want these weird in between. I just want a specific direction that I can either pivot and say, okay, that goes in this column or that goes in this column, and I can kind of go about my day. And then on the flip side is living in that almost like black and white world a little bit. I liked this idea of with integrity, you have nothing to fear since you have nothing to hide. But with integrity, you will do the right thing so you will have no guilt. But how come sometimes those yes and no answers that I want when it comes to the hard truth, I feel really guilty about because it means, well, I could have said this. I could have done this better. I just need to go back and repeat it. If you can't tell, I'm a bit of a perfectionist type A personality. So I thought these were very interesting because I was like, I get both of them almost independently, but when I look at it that way, it's like, oh, okay. So we're having a hard time with that yes or no, but at the same time, it's asking the question that you feel a little guilty about. And I found really interesting of just like, again, with it being the core values, this is one of those themes that you're just not going to probably get a really nice, almost like tied with a bow, perfect answer for one of those things. And I think that becomes a way to add a little bit of a comfort of it is not a black and white world out there. It is very much a gray space. It is very much a gray area. And I think there are tools and things that we can do on a day-to-day basis to live in a integrity component. But at the same time, it's going to bring all of these other emotions. And so maybe that is where I kind of want to sit and think about, well, if I make this decision, or if I move in this direction, then it's one of those that can add to some of the guilt or the not guilt and maybe work on some of those almost like cascading domino effects on the later period. And I think it just is one of those tricky things, but I think it's one of those that just happens. That's living life, that's trying to kind of better yourself. And it's all of these bigger pieces, but sometimes it just feels a little heavy and a little tricky to navigate and almost to the point of feeling not good enough. And we are never not good enough. We are always trying. Any progress is some progress. And I feel like that's a better way to kind of approach it, even when we have this kind of looming in the background. But that's just kind of my thought on integrity. But I would love to hear your thoughts on integrity in the chat because we're going to move into our week 1 integrity mind map. We're going to do our rosebud thorn reflection, and then we're going to do those weekly setup pages just as we do. So for that integrity mind map, We are going to do four specific questions each week, and then this particular month we are going to have a bonus maps or a bonus question. So these are not printed in your journal. So you can go ahead and find a blank piece of page. A lot of people do the back page, page 60. I do the first blank page. I find it just a little bit easier for me to navigate there, but you can use the definitions page. Maybe you don't want to commit to a full page spread, and so you're just kind of tucking it in the weekly pages somewhere. And so we are going to build ours for the first time. If you haven't already done so, we know some people will use the monthly setups to also set up their mind maps, and we love that. But this is your opportunity to divide it into the four quadrants. You can use particular zones, you can use stencils. This is where I enjoy the sticker component because I decorate it from that. My example will be on the couple slides from now. But this is our opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into those into this month theme of integrity through different lenses. Exactly, there are 5 weeks this month, Carolina. So we're doing four of our standard kind of mind map questions, and then we'll have a bonus question, which doesn't necessarily need to be on the same page with the other four questions. It'll just be kind of one of our regular prompts that you can just tuck into the previous pages, or just a little spot on one of the journals, or even a completely separate if you've got a journal, a separate journal, or even a workbook, one of those things. So it will be treated as a standalone prompt. So, with week one, we're going to explore the self and the inner world through the lens of integrity. And I thought that this was a really cute way to think about it is your identity plus yourself, but maybe throwing in some trust. And I think these are also just, it's a tough question to tackle right out of the gate on a Monday morning. I get it. I was struggling trying to tackle it while I was prepping for this. And the questions we're kind of exploring is where are you betraying yourself and where are you honoring your relationship with yourself? And I did change the isms because I always feel weird reading it in the first person. And so these ideas, the first three, are written directly from the previous slide. And so where are you betraying yourself and where are you honoring your relationship with yourself? And I like to add a couple other thoughts as you try to tackle this. And the first thing I thought of is, can you look at this through a less harsh lens? And a lot of it is, if you came to any of the monthly setups that I hosted, it was the quote that I came across, which was, again, the one that's embedded in me with doing the right thing when no one is looking. And I feel like I talked about a little bit with the self-talk or getting feedback, which I think tied into Bailey's take on awareness that we had in April, of just people, telling you that you are great and you're amazing and you do all these wonderful things. But you then turn and pivot and you don't have that same self-confidence. You're not speaking to yourself as you would to your friends or families. You're a little bit harsher. So that was more of the let's not beat ourselves up over where we're betraying ourselves. Let's prop up certainly where we're honoring the relationship. But I understand that we have to kind of explore both. But I wanted the gentle reminder of you can pick the lens that you look at these through. And so sometimes it's not exploring how you got to a particular situation. It's that the situation happened and then look at the amazing way that you responded on the back end. That is one of those kind of mental and emotional boundaries that I talk about that you can set. And then I always like to kind of turn inward. And I'm specifically looking at was your self-confidence rattled because someone said something or someone did something? So I try to pivot in the almost like, where are you betraying yourself? Are you emotionally and mentally kind of knocking yourself down? Are you not realistically like hitting expectations, that type of thing? But I like that pivot there. And that same thing with the honoring your relationship with yourself. I do feel like a lot of people will define some of their relationships with their self through other mechanisms or other entities. And while that is great, I just like to have the reminder of this is our self-care journey. And so it's not being selfish, it's just kind of pivoting into kind of a prioritization loop. So that's why I was like the turn inward, because there are some factors we can control and there's some factors we can't. So that's why maybe just considering that. And then as well, be gentle with yourself on this one. And then can you find a silver lining? And I think the Sonder family does such a great job of calling out the kind of more uncomfortable things, but almost in the same breath, in the same sentence. It's the, oh, but can I do this? And I love seeing that kind of optimism associated with it because, again, we've all had the highs and we've all had these lows, but can we treat these as a reflection opportunity? So already seeing all of these things and great reframing as well. Instead of betrayal, which I do know can be a little bit of a harsh word, I like the approach of not aligned. So already you guys are steps ahead with the reframing and how can you focus on this to you to be a little bit more gentle, to be a little bit more almost again reflective in a productive way and not a destructive way. So I am going to stop talking. We are working on that week 1 mind map. Let me know if I need to go back to a different slide, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. You all are quite the professionals when it comes to reframing, repurposing, building some sort of connection to still kind of explore this tougher question, but in a way that is more suited to your style, your lens, or your kind of end goals. And I love that. Um, and I think, Amber, you worded it exactly. This is a very, very tough question. And I think I saw someone else was going to noodle on it later as well. I think it may have been Heather. But I think that's also very true. That's why I have the little graphic in the bottom of that. Sometimes don't force what doesn't flow. You're allowed to take space and revisit things later. And I do think this is quite a tricky and a tough question. Like I said, right out of the chute this early this morning. But certainly something that I think is worth either a reframe or just another look, or even a look through the first time later this week. And that's what's great about these mind map questions is we do have the whole week to kind of look and explore. Because I do think it is one of those worth thinking. And I loved, like I said, so much of the reframing. I loved the watered down component because I feel like that is something that I can tangibly relate to, or the how am I not being true to myself, almost like in building another connection to help with that, that again maybe softens that harshness a bit. But thank you, everybody, for sharing. That's what's so special about these socials and these questions, because it is one of those, it's kind of the right type of jab, a little bit, but it's also one of those that I think is certainly worthwhile. But sometimes you just have to be in at least the right headspace to kind of explore it, because I do think it can be beneficial. Don't want it to be destructive in any way. So we are now going to move to our Rosebud Thorn reflection, which is going to be on page 30 in your May journal. And this is the opportunity to again have that reflective lens, but at the same time, you get to decide, excuse me, how you move forward with some of these, because that's kind of the way I think of it, is the opportunity to kind of evaluate what you had previously done in the last week, but then decide how you want to move forward with it. Is it going to be something that you're going to take feedback on? Is it something you're going to look at? Or are you really just going to give it its moment in the spotlight and then ask it to exit stage left gracefully? And so the rose is going to be something that made you happy, that made you smile, that was a highlight, something that was fun, something that went well. For me, I am back staying with my parents while I am in between jobs. And we were always big outdoor game people. And so we talked about getting out the croquet set, and I love croquet. And I think we all realized that we still really like croquet. We just hadn't done it in a while, and we introduced croquet to my 5-year-old nephew. And he's one of those that he either takes it like way too seriously, way too competitive, and loves it, or he really just dabbles because that was what we wanted to do. We could not get him away from the croquet court, if you will. He had the option to swim, but he chose to do croquet. So now we are planning a family croquet match next week, big croquet tournament. But it was so much fun. And it is one of those, like, we realized how much fun we had. And then for the bud, that's going to be an emerging opportunity, something that you're looking forward to, something that is out on the horizon that you haven't quite determined what's going to be. The emerging opportunity for me is the sun shines significantly more over here than it did where I was previously living, to the point I don't even know if I could define the shade my legs currently are. So getting out in the sun a little bit more, getting a little bit more of a glow, if you will. Don't worry, I use ample sunscreen. But it was just one of those kind of exciting things that I was like, oh, I don't have to just like embrace the first sunny day because it comes out more often. So I'm excited about that. And then a thorn, that is going to be a challenge, something that maybe didn't go so well, something that was a roadblock, something a little bit negative. The way I reframe it a little bit is because I fixate on the negative, something that took up either too much time, energy, or effort in your part. And for me, there was just a lot of mental, like I said, I'm doing job interviews. So I had 5 job interviews last week. And that just took up way too much mental anything and everything to the point I was like, I'm just tired this week. And I didn't really do anything. I didn't do much. So I was like, while I love that it is certainly a rose that I have those interviews, I cannot complain. I am thrilled that I was able to have so many, but having so many back to back, I was like, I'm just tired and I just need a break. So luckily this week's a little bit lighter, but I feel bad for calling that a thorn because I was like, it's a great thing. It shows that I'm moving forward in that kind of job search. And I know other people maybe not be as lucky, but it was just the fact that it was a lot. Um, and I am glad that they are over with. But as always, we would love to celebrate those roses with each of you. Get excited for the buds ahead, as well as provide extra love, thought, and support around those thorns. So we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And please do consider continuing to share, even as we move through the different slides, different prompts as we go. This is your opportunity to kind of put all of those things out into the universe because even I feel a little bit lighter just acknowledging the good, the less good, and everything in between. But I think really kind of reading the different rosebuds, thorns across the board, I think there's at least a bit of a common thread when it comes to milestones. And that's everything from, happy anniversaries to those kind of melancholy anniversaries. But also, I feel like May should also be dubbed the milestone month, because seeing a lot of folks, if you have school age children, college age children, graduations definitely show up here. But at the same time, if you're working on some sort of new career pivot or transition as well, I feel like May was always when they said to do it. No one puts their house on the market during, the winter. It's always during kind of around school years, those type of things. But loved seeing everybody's different ones. And at the same time, we are cheering you on for those roses, getting excited for those buds, but sending you all extra thoughts and prayers and strength as you navigate some of those thorns. And so now we're going to move over to, again, those weekly pages. And I saw someone call it Maycember. Because the way I like to approach the weekly pages is asking yourself, what do you need this week? Because maybe what you need is something a little bit different. Maybe what you need is exactly as written on the page. Maybe you need to have some of these other sections to help prop up your kind of main goals. But please join us on page 32 and 33. But the Maycember one that caught my attention is I fully admit, in my opinion, that the summer is busier than the holidays at the end of the year. I've always said that. I have always said that even in some of my work professions when people are like, oh, it's always the holidays. I was like, no, I have a harder time staffing projects in the summer because of all the milestones, all of those things that I think May kicks it off to the point I find the summer months. One, I mean, I'm a summer birthday, so I get excited about those things, but I just find them trickier to navigate. Everyone is on vacation, everyone is planning for vacations, it's hot, all of those things that play into it. So I just find it a little trickier. So that's why I always like to frame it, especially if you get a little hold up on some of the different sections, how to use them for that motivation. I always ask myself, what do I need? And again, it can be what I need is exactly as written on the page. What I need is something different. What I need is the exact same thing that worked last week, because why not keep that momentum going? And sometimes what I need is a break. So if you get a little hold up, or if again, you start to, that self-doubt creeps in about what you're doing, just take that moment to ask yourself, what do you need? And so we're going to start at the top of page 32 with This Week I Want to Feel. And I like to treat it as a question. So that's how I already repurposed that one with how do I want to feel this time next week? Because as I'm experiencing the rosebud thorns of the week, I like to have some sort of guide or at least some sort of kind of end idea of like, this is how I want to feel. So this is how all of these pieces are going to work together, even as I'm experiencing things that are out of my control. And sometimes how you want to feel is your word of the year. Sometimes it is leaning into the Silk and Sonder theme of the month, which is integrity or some version of integrity. And then maybe it's kind of a little bit squishier idea, 1% better, 5% happier, 15% more hydrated. Maybe it is a combination of words. Maybe you need a different word each day. I kind of leaned into that one a little bit last week just because I had such different interviews that I almost needed some flexibility, some overselling components. So I had a couple different days for the week because I did a lot across the scale, it seems. Sometimes you want less of something, sometimes you want more of something. Sometimes what you want is the previous week one because it's really working. And then, as I always say, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So maybe you want to put a picture there. We have some great motivational pictures and stickers, which are always fun. So I'm going to give you a quick moment to do that. If you want to share how you want to feel this time next week or this week you want to feel, I'm going to play a quick song and then we'll move to the next section. Thank you for sharing. So we're still on page 32, and I'm going to combine the next two section with the weekly major three goals and the weekly to-dos because the way I approach this page is those two to me work really quite hand in hand. The major three goals, I tend to make them more of the mental and emotional reminders that I need to give myself for the week. And so, really, instead of having three goals, I'm actually just having one because I definitely feel like I need the mental recharge, which is really impacting kind of my just feeling of tiredness. Jen and I were joking about the Fitbits because I had a pretty solid sleep score, but my readiness was really low. And and I know my Fitbit can't determine my mental stamina, but I just feel like that's where my headspace is. So, what's great is again asking yourself what you need. So maybe you need the three major goals. Maybe it's just the three things you want to do that week, or maybe it is only one goal, two goals, or even just minor goals. And so you can certainly repurpose this. We do love the categorization of these, just because it helps prioritize and focus you. So consider the zoom in, zoom out. So maybe it's a mind, body, and a soul goal. Again, maybe it's more of those squishier, crunchier things that you want to accomplish. And then you're going to kind of define those a little bit more in detail in the to-dos and the habits and activities. And at the same thing, a trick I always like is the fixation that our brain has on alliterations. So the idea of if your different categories rhyme, you tend to get a little bit more excited about them. So I like the revisit, restore, and relax, which kind of goes into that hand. And I certainly reframe it as revisiting some of the tasks that I didn't get done, restoring again for me on the mental side, and relax just because I don't always have a lot of downtime at my particular just like chapter of life I'm in. And so to really kind of take on the fact that no one is hunting me down for work related things, and I just kind of get to sit and enjoy and not have to run a household and do all those things by myself because I'm with my parents. There's just an opportunity to really lean into that. Maybe again, it's the frog fun fierce. Maybe it is adding an additional category with the four C's, which is create, consume, cavort, and commune. The reason I like to combine these is that bottom section with the three different categories, and then the direct correlation between the to-dos that will support those different categories so that you can feel the way you want to feel this time next week. And same thing with maybe again leaning into the affirmation or some of those mental and emotional reminders. The one on the right, it was I liked the complete pivot of weekly major three affirmations. And that was again more of the kind of categories of mind, body, and heart, but leaning into those affirmations. Because sometimes you just don't need that regimented to do. Maybe what you need again is a little bit, oh, Lori, great. I loved that one. Because I thought it was a really nice combination of kind of an inspiration, but not necessarily a micromanagement. If that is what is going to work for someone. And again, two categories, maybe it's a home and a work. The let go, leap into, and learn. All really good ideas as you approach this. And then when we move into the weekly to-dos, and again, just let me know if I need to go back to a different slide when I go off the camera. And so sometimes then overlaying those to-dos will help support those goals, or again, you can keep them separately. As I've been joking, I was like, I have a bit of a to-do list. I take a step out, kind of step away from everybody and spend some time just making sure that things are still functioning. I do have some schoolwork, so those are kind of smaller to-do lists. I usually lean into the Eisenhower matrix when I am alone and unafraid in the world. And that's because I appreciate the do, the decide, the delegate, and delete. But I usually don't delete anything. I will delay it. And as I've joked before, because I am back with my parents, I didn't realize that they too know the secret of the Eisenhower matrix because I no longer get to delegate to anyone. I get delegated to, which is great. That means just my to-do list includes others, which is always fun. So again, maybe it's the reflection of the categories, the self, the home, and the work. Maybe it again is just a reframing and a reprioritization of those different to-dos. And it's also one of those things I find that I do need to shake up my to-do list often, especially if I find myself carrying too many to-dos over from the week. Maybe it's just the breaking down of them into the need to do and the want to do. Same thing with a don't do this instead. Maybe this is not where you want to put a to-do list. Maybe you want to assign them to a specific day. So you use the meal plan template for that. And this is just where that kind of to be reminder is, those weekly wins, maybe the to-dos, maybe this is where you put your mind map. But there's definitely a bunch of different approaches to this. So if you would like to share in the chat how you approach these two sections, I know we love to get the inspiration, we love to get the ideas, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I appreciated seeing some of the relationships between the weekly to-dos and those weekly major three goals, but also just how you lean into some of the different ideas and ways to make it work for you. So thank you, everybody, for sharing. So we are going to stay on page 32. This is that bottom section with the habit and activity tracker. I always, this is one of those that I definitely lean into everybody else's inspiration on because I am a creature of habit, so I know mine are quite boring. They certainly work for me. But that is certainly why I continue to do the way I do them. I've just kind of reframed how I think about it. So the monthly habit tracker are things that I want to do every single day. And I tend to keep it a little bit more open-ended just because I was really beating myself up over managing my expectations a better, especially when it came to the habit and activity tracker. And so the three things that I want to do every week are move, read, and journal. I then pull those three over into the weekly habit and activity tracker and add that lens of reality. And that's everything from what is the weather going to be like? So how can I incorporate a movement? Am I going to do a class? I found it a little bit trickier as I transitioned to the US because I got my car back. So I'm not walking nearly as much because I don't have to walk for errands anymore. Don't worry, I have tried to consider it, but it's just a little too spread out. So those are the things that I kind of consider. And I'm going to lean a little bit more into kind of reading this month or this particular week, just because I've fallen off a little bit because I've been doing a handful of other things. So I then try to find ways to kind of put these things kind of set aside dedicated time for that. And that's really how I've treated those habits and activities is those are things that make me happy. Those are the things that recharge me. Those are the things that refresh me. So I need to find time to incorporate those, but also like give them that dedicated moment that they have. So that almost becomes like an added layer of a to-do list. But that's kind of how I try to look at it. But you can look at it and maybe have it in activities that you want to stop. Maybe you want to set some goals for those because you're on a particular journey that you're wanting to focus on. So the 5 4 3 2 1 is a great method. Maybe this is where those more mental and emotional reminders are because you have your to-dos and you have the three things that you want to accomplish kind of across that. But I always say for me in particular, if I need a break from something, this is the first thing that I get a break from on the weekly pages just because I am looking at them on the monthly tracker side of things. Maybe you want to use the fact that your weekdays are going to look a little bit different than your weekends, especially as the summer starts coming into form. Not trying to get rid of spring yet, don't worry, but it just again, like I said, the May-Cembers, I think it kicks off that really busy time. Maybe instead of five different habits and activities, maybe you focus on three, maybe it's two, maybe it's one, maybe it's none. Because as I said, I'm one of those, I just need the three. I will maybe add in a fourth every now and then, but those tend to be something a little bit more impromptu. And then you all know I love my iconography. So when it's talking about kind of things that I like to do, I repurpose my expense tracker because these are things that I feel like I kind of inherently do. Like, for example, make something sweet at home. So why not give them a little bit of a moment? And I feel like it just, to me, it makes my day a little bit more magical. It makes it a little bit more whimsy. It's those kind of added glimmers that you're intentionally doing even if it's something that you already have into your routine, which is like, I think I saw someone was out by their window getting ready for this social. So it's like those kind of magical things you can highlight as this is something I intentionally did today in that capacity. And then Casey, one of the social media managers for Slick and Sonder, has been doing so amazing on the Instagram app. So this is now their 30 days of integrity where you can start incorporating these either in kind of an adventure bucket list mode or just motivation there. So again, maybe you need a prompt. Where are you choosing others over yourself lately? Which I do think goes hand in hand with the how are you watering yourself down? So it really went well with the mind map question. So maybe this is a way to reframe it, or at least help support that. So I thought that was a great tie-in. And at the same time, I am also a big kind of sustainable produce fan. So these are the ones that are in season. Even though I did pass a little bit of judgment on this because I feel like this is a little early for like the true summer cucumbers. But that was just kind of me nerding out a little bit about the vegetables, but I do love a good summer cucumber. And then Ambitiously Alexa is another one that I want. And I thought it was kind of funny that the whimsy was the challenge for the week when it comes to May. And then I appreciated the follow a random small urge. So again, maybe the little side quest that the dragon was referring to earlier today. But That's kind of what I enjoy, and that's how I incorporate some of these. So I always now have a like an adventure list or a bucket list item that I try to accomplish each day, and I put that on my expense tracker. But I certainly love all of these. So I'm going to play a quick song, and we will see you soon. Ah, where does this time go? So now we're going to switch over to the B side, which I refer to this page because the page we just completed is the staple. That's the one that I use all the time. But page 33 is one that I use the templates when I really need them, which again goes back to the reframing. What do you need this particular week? And so I'm going to combine all of these sections. And if I need to go back to a specific example, please let me know. So the meal plan is something that you can use specifically as a meal plan, and you can plan for that, or it is something that you can use more as a meal tracker. So if you're on a particular healthcare journey, or even something that you're just wanting to check, either kind of a causation when it comes to symptoms, this is a great way to do that. Not only is it great for you, but you can also use it for if you're in a caretaker position, or even if you have pets that just need a little extra attention in that regard. Maybe you want to lean into the kind of mental or meal plan for the soul. So leaning into some of those prompts. Maybe you need the moment of Zen doodles. I love seeing all the doodles, and I love seeing the pivot that some people are using when it comes to the meal plan. I even saw that I think someone has their husband do the doodles, which I think is really fun because it's that really nice way to connect over this. Maybe it is a clothing or wardrobe tracker, especially as we talk about vacations coming up. I am a big fan of using this to pack. I find myself doing less of a packing overpacking, because I use that in this regard. The mind body health plan, that is also something that you can plan ahead for, or it is something you can track in real time. Maybe again, you need that added help when it comes to alliteration. So connecting the type of days. Maybe it's a really powerful check-in with the I am feeling this, therefore I need this. It's a great way to check in either at the beginning, middle, or end of your day, just to maybe help if you can kind of make an adjustment that could maybe impact how the day turns out for you. Maybe it's adding a bucket list item here. I actually was inspired by the thrift vintage sunglasses, so I may go on that little side quest and I'll keep you all posted. And then I always appreciate this for just maybe if you need some reminders for when you're overthinking, little things we're smiling about. I love the curation that I've done on my social media so that I get this type of inspiration and some of the other things. And then you have the shopping list that can go hand in hand with that meal plan or even the preparation required there. Or we do love a good bingo board with the gamification of some of those, especially as we move into the milestones for May, anniversaries, birthdays, end of school, all of those great things. So you can certainly turn it into a really great themed bingo board, or maybe just those gentle reminders for each of you. So I'm going to stop talking, play very briefly one song, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. It goes by so quickly because then we have that very last section, which is the I am loving at the bottom of that page, which gives you the opportunity to just share or write down something that is making you smile, making you happy, something that is almost even just getting you through the day. So I love the opportunity to do that. And then we would love to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app. We love to see your examples because even as I jokingly say, I am a creature of habit, so my journal gets quite boring for the maybe untrained eye. But we're so glad that you joined us. I think Jen already shared the YouTube link in there as well because you can always catch up or see another facilitator's perspective on the questions or the theme. I know Malika hosted the one yesterday. If you aren't already aware of our coaching, we love that. There's always new features, new feedback around that. So if you want to check that out, let us know. This is a copy of my playlist. I loved the little stormtrooper walking across the piano. I thought it was a lovely visual, but I'll include the Spotify link in the chat. And as always, we are so glad you joined us on this Monday. I know you guys are going to have an amazing rest of your day. You're going to have an amazing week, and we hope to see you at a future event real soon. Bye.
Am I doing this the wrong way? Am I moving at the right pace? Am I forever at the same stage? Repeating everything. I'm walking down the same street. It's all making me wanna scream. Gray skies and too much concrete looking down on me. say, but what if you're chained to the floor?